Hi, this is TheHande, and as you probably have seen from the video title, this is me ranking every adventure game that I've played. Yes, every single one. All 73 games. So, why exactly am I making a ranking of all of my adventure games? Well, you might remember that I do have a top 10 and a bottom 10 adventure games list on this channel. And in the past, when I used to make a lot more 10 videos, I used to periodically also take them down and remake them from time to time. In fact, the most recent top 10 adventure games list that I made was a remake of an older version of that same list. The reason I used to like to do that was because every couple of years it would be nice to see like how my opinions on the things that I was making the top 10s about would have changed over time. But after a few of those top 10 and bottom 10 list remakes, I came to the realization that honestly, my tastes don't change that much from year to year, so eventually I kind of just stopped remaking the lists, unless there had been a significantly long amount of time from the previous time I did the list. So, like one good example would be something like my top 10 sci-fi movies, which I think was top 12 or something. Like that was one of the few exceptions where the old video was like so old that it was completely out of date, and but the problem was like also just redoing the top 10 just for the sake of redoing it was something that I was also very resistant to. And the big problem is like it would be more fun to redo the top 10 if there were actually major changes. If it was like one new entry or two new entries or even just three new entries, I don't think that would really justify just making a completely new video. And on top of that, I always feel very self-conscious about the fact that if I redo a top 10 and all I'm really doing is just shuffling the same entrants around, that also felt really weird. But I have very recently started to come around to the idea of actually redoing the top 10 adventure games list and actually doing it, doing a substantial reshuffling of it, possibly. Now, the thing that is still holding me back really is that the top 3 entrants I have mentioned previously are just games that I just genuinely love so much that I don't think that I could ever really have the heart to put anything else in the top 3 besides them. So I have had some ideas on how to kind of have my cake and eat it a little bit, how to do a new top 10 adventure games list, but also highlight games which I never really gave a lot of time to. And this video is basically just meant to be a possible prep for the eventual top 10. Basically, what I really just wanted to have a chance was to just talk about all these adventure games, lay bare my thoughts on them, and basically just give everybody a general view of what I think about these games. Partially that's the reason why I've kept doing all the my favorite adventure game puzzles list, my favorite adventure game Easter eggs videos, which I ran dry on that one very quickly. I've tried to make these videos where I focus on very specific aspects of adventure games, and because that gives me an excuse to also talk about the game in the meanwhile. But now we're going to do an actual tier list, and in the next cut we will jump into the tier list itself, and I'll explain the order of operations here, and then we will start actually talking about it. I've done a few of these tier list videos before, but this one is going to be pretty big. Alright, here we are now at the rank table, and you will notice that, just as before whenever I do one of these tier lists, I don't like doing just the boring A, B, C, D, whatever letter ranks. So I have made these boxes myself with different titles. Make this ranking a little bit more interesting, a little bit more descriptive, and it's going to help me as well just to have a better idea of what's going on. When I said that I am ranking every adventure game that I've ever made, I do, or every adventure game that I've ever played, I do mean that literally. I have gone back through every possible adventure game that I have played for like actually serious amounts of time. That was kind of like my main thing, is that if it's just like an adventure game that I maybe had a peek at, but I didn't actually like look into it, like something like Dragon Sphere, which I, you know, downloaded, started, and then thought like, yeah, this isn't for me, and then I just, you know, didn't, you know, go. I didn't even bother actually playing the game. Then that's the kind of experience. Then those kinds of games I've tried to exclude. Now, despite that, there is one thing. So the ranking, generally speaking, if you've seen one of these rank lists, you already know where this is going. You know, what's at the top is, you know, the best, and what's at the bottom is typically the worst. Except there's this little question mark box here at the bottom. Now, and this box here is basically just reserved for games which I have played, but which I feel I haven't really played enough to have an informed opinion on. And this is either because I wasn't really into the game, or I just haven't had the time to really play it. I don't know, there's a whole bunch of different reasons, or maybe I just couldn't get very far in the game and I kind of gave up, something like that. And me not having beat a game isn't necessarily, you know, a factor for for me not having an opinion on it. Don't get me wrong, most of the games are going to actually go into these other categories, but there's going to be a bunch of games that I know people would be bugging me about if I didn't include them. So I'm going to just address that right at the beginning by stating which games are going to go into the bottom. And in fact, usually when I do these tier lists, I usually like to start with what is my, you know, top favorite and which ones are my bottom favorites. You know, the obvious thing that I was thinking about, like for order of operations, because, you know, these are going to have to be in some kind of an order. I thought that, you know, well, okay, that's easy. Let's do LucasArts, Sierra, then everybody else. But I then realized a couple of problems. If I was going through the games of an adventure game series, I really wanted to talk about those games together. And immediately I ran into the problem because, of course, LucasArts, the obvious topic would be Monkey Island. But LucasArts has not done all of the Monkey Island games. In fact, 2 of the 6 games are made by a different studio other than LucasArts. So I ended up putting the Monkey Islands in their own little category here. So the order in which I'm going to go through these games is that, you know, I'm a LucasArts fan. We're going to start with the LucasArts games, all the ones except Monkey Island. And then we will work our way through the Monkey Island games, and then Sierra, then Revolution Software is also getting its own little category here. The categories of games made by other companies is split into 2 separate categories. There is the solo category, which means just standalone adventure games, or adventure games that are part of a series, but I have not played any other entries in that series, and that's why the games are there by themselves. And then finally we're going to go into the category of other adventure game series where I have played multiple games, or possibly all of the games. Now I also need to stress that I am strictly limiting this to mostly just actual adventure games, and that by that I mean either either point and click adventure games, text parser adventure games that may have a point and click interface, 3D adventure games where you directly control a character, and then 3D point and click adventure games. And I make that distinction because there's a lot of games that are sort of a borderline case, that they could be classified as adventure games, but they also have another very prominent gameplay aspect that would maybe not classify them as adventure games. And just because I don't want them to muddy the waters here too badly, I have excluded most of those. And also, most of the games here are released by major recognizable studios, but there's a couple of small indie developed games or freeware type games, and the only reason I've included them is because I've actually finished the whole game. or because I had to talk about them in connection to some other games. Okay, we're now ready to begin with the ranking, but I'm going to immediately have to make a little note about the number of games that I originally mentioned. It's actually it's not 72, it's actually 74, because I just literally realized that there were 2 games that were missing. One of them was actually missing from the LucasArts folder altogether, and one was from a later folder. You don't have to worry about that too much. Okay, but we're going to start this. So, yeah, sorry, I forgot to explain the rank table. From classics all the way down to flawed but good. Now, these are all games that I would consider absolutely to be top 10 material. The classics category is, you know, for games that I absolutely love and enjoy, while solid is games that I maybe don't have as strong of an affection as the ones in this category, but which are still really solid, good adventure games that I will be mentioning as we go along. The flawed but good category, and I do get the feeling like there's going to be a lot of games that are going to make into this category, are adventure games that I love, but I will recognize readily do have some glaring flaws, either in their presentation or gameplay or something. You know, it's something that you have to be willing to accept if you're going to play these games, that they might have these specific shortcomings. Now, if we jump down to the bottom, bad is pretty self-explanatory. It's an adventure game that I don't enjoy, or it's just like objectively just a terrible game that I don't enjoy. So this means like, and listen, I'm the kind of person who tries to find positives in most things, and people might remember that when I did my bottom 10 adventure games list, like I really struggled with it, because I just don't really hate on adventure games that readily. So for something to be in the bad category, like it has to be like a game that I absolutely just, you know, despise. Now the tedious category is a bit similar to the bad, in that the main issue is maybe not even the technical sides or, you know, the other sort of obvious adventure game garbage that you might get with certain types of games, but rather the issue really is that the game's not really fun, that it just it takes forever to really do anything or get going with it. And then right down the middle is something I like to call the hold my hand territory. So especially the older adventure games are notoriously cryptic, and that is usually the main hiccup for people to even try to get into the really old adventure games. So I have done this, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this. Like, if you want to play an adventure game in a way where, as you're playing it, you have a walkthrough or something off to the side that you can consult whenever you're making your way through the game. Like, if you completely run up against a wall, can't come up with a solution to a puzzle, or just don't know what you're supposed to be doing, then you just consult the walkthrough. And there are a few games that I'm going to be mentioning that I have, a few adventure games that I really wanted to play, but I knew I was never going to be able to beat by myself, where I have kind of just conceded to just playing it with the walkthrough ready, so that I can immediately go and consult it without getting frustrated at the game. And certain games, especially like the really old Sierra games, are like this. I highly recommend, especially like the 80s Sierra games, that if you want to try to figure them out by yourself, sure. But I also just think that those games are just a lot more fun if you just have the walkthrough ready for you. But obviously, that kind of takes away from the charm of, you know, discovering the game for yourself and everything. So, you know, those kinds of games, they're obviously never going to be in the top tiers of the adventure game rankings. So that's why. Okay, so enough preambles. Now, I said I was going to put the games in the question mark category. And there's one game that I'm going to be putting in the question mark category. Well, actually, maybe not, but usually I like to start with the games that whenever I've done this tier list before, that I like to start with what is my top pick, and then what is my bottom pick, and then everything else will just kind of fall into place. So, of course, we have to start with Grim Fandango. This is one of those 3 games, and this obviously has to go up here into the classics category. I mean, there's no question. This is one of my favorite adventure games of all time. Grim Fandango is one of the 3 games that I mentioned that are always in my top 3. And the last time I did the top 10, Grim Fandango was number 1. I think right now it would probably be. I think it would probably be like number 3 or 2, maybe 3. But the reason it was number 1 right at that time was because I think the Grim Fandango remaster had literally just come out, so it was fresh in my mind. And Grim Fandango is a fantastic game. It's a Tim Schafer game. Tim Schafer usually does really, really good adventure games. It's got a great story and great characters, and it's just a bizarre world. That's the main thing. Like it's set in the Mexican afterlife. But it just has fantastic, relatable characters. That's the main reason it is such a good game, and why I've always loved it. It has also fantastic music. Peter McConnell, who is, as much as a Monkey Island fan as I am, I have to admit that Peter McConnell, I think, is a slightly better composer than Michael Land. So his musical input in this is excellent. Like, it has 1930s influences, and then Mexican, Latin American influences as well in the soundtrack. But it's the characters, really. And Manny, the fact that Manny is such a fucking cool main character, but also just very, very relatable. It's about a guy basically being stuck in the afterlife and not being able to move on. And it's got great themes, and because it's Tim Schafer, there's lots of goofy comedy as well. But the puzzle solving is really great. I'm a little hard pressed to say, because I played this so long ago, and I'm so used to it. I maybe I don't really have a good handle on, are the puzzles actually like super cryptic, or do they actually just make sense in the game's kind of weird world in a way. I will say, one thing that, if you do play the remaster, then I implore you, don't use the mouse interface that they tried to shoehorn into the game. It just doesn't work. Use the keyboard. I know it's tank controls and people don't like tank controls, but the game really does play way better with the keyboard interface, because that's what it was meant to play with. All right, so going to the bottom, this one was featured in my bottom 10 adventure games list, so I don't think I can hide it. Maniac Mansion. Like I said in the bottom 10 as well, like, even the guy who made this game, Ron Gilbert, who is, the creator of the Monkey Island series, like, even Ron Gilbert admits that Maniac Mansion is not a very good adventure game. And the problem really is, the big problem with it really is that it's just not a game you can just kind of just jump into and play. It really is a game where you can just screw yourself over by, using plot important items. And the other thing I hate about it is that there's only really a very particular set of steps you can take through the game that allows you to play through it. You can play well into it without realizing you can't beat the game, and that's the thing I really hate about these super old adventure games, the pre-1990 ones. And the art style's not very good in my opinion either. Like, by stark contrast, I think I need to. This is a game that I actually, seriously, this one, honestly, I have been thinking about putting in the top 10 multiple times. This is one of the new potential entries that I have thought about. This is the sequel to Maniac Mansion. It's called Day of the Tentacle, and it is so much better of a game. You wouldn't believe it. I I actually have a Let's Play of this on my second channel if you wanted to check that out. So it brings back. Wait a minute. I think only the Bernard is the only one of the main characters to come back, and then it's the people living in the mansion are also in it. And the thing that I really love about this game is the fact that it's about like these three characters being stuck in different time periods and and they have to help each other out in order to defeat Purple Tentacle, who is the evil villain of this game. And it's just a cartoony, great, fun time. Actually, the hard part here is for me to decide where I want to put this. Do I want to put it in the classics or the solids? Because this game is legit. You know what? I'm not gonna mess around. I'm gonna put it in the classics because So I need to stress, I did not play this game back in the 90s. This is a game that I only got to experience thanks to Double Fine, which is Tim Schafer's company. And Tim Schafer was one of the two primary writers on this game, along with Dave Grossman, who is also with whom he also worked on Monkey Island. But yeah, this one definitely deserves to go up here. This is just a fantastic... And this one, I would say... Okay, there is... I forgot, but there is one or two kind of very cryptic puzzles in here that, might, make the game a little difficult to get into for some people. But it's still, it's still a fantastic game. I think that... If you're willing, this is a game where you might have to console the walkthrough once or twice. So that's still, it's just such a good game. I cannot in good conscience put it lower. It has to go up here. I'm actually kind of hard, I have these in order, but I'm not sure if I want to go from the oldest to newest necessarily. I just kind of mentioned this one because I already mentioned Maniac Mansion, how much better of a game Day of the Tentacle is in comparison to Maniac Mansion, because it's so much better. I think it's ridiculous. Okay, let's talk about this one, because this is a franchise people might recognize. Sam and Max Hit the Road. So this is the original Sam and Max game, and Sam and Max, of course, were... they were actually, comic characters before this game was made. This game was made by Steve Purcell, who was an artist at LucasArts. And I have a review video of this game, not a Let's Play, but I have reviewed it. And I have noted that the biggest problem with this game is that it is very, very cryptic. It has multiple moments in the game where I don't think... where you can spend the whole fucking day trying to figure out some of these puzzles, and it's just, you just will not. You cannot. It's impossible. It is, and one of the, because it does a lot of things, like you have a lot of inventory items that don't do anything, that you don't need to actually beat the game. There's a lot of distractions, and there's a lot of like stupid stuff in it that I am not a big fan of. It's a fun game, don't get me wrong, and I think the art style is fantastic. I don't know, this one is tough. I'm tempted to put it in the flawed but good category, because it is a good game. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's a bad game. But I'm almost tempted to just put it here in the hold my hand category. I don't think it's so bad that you need to every single step of the way that you need a walkthrough, but it is pretty cryptic and unclear. I think the story is kind of cute, but Sam and Max games, Telltale later went on to make a bunch of those. I think they made 3 more Sam and Max games. So the story in the Sam and Max games has never been like the main focus. It's really more for the comedy, but I do think Sam and Max Hit the Road actually does have a really, really good story. All right, let's talk next about The Dig. Actually, this is not the games box. This is they've made a novelization of the game. So if you want to read that, check that out. It's I haven't read it, but I would imagine it would actually be pretty good. I have a review video of this one as well, and I genuinely really love The Dig. The Dig is one of those LucasArts adventure games that actually gets forgotten most of the time. And I think, I need to remember this, I think I actually said that I like this game more than Day of the Tentacle. It's a game that has had a very problematic production history, and it got a little bit, lost in the shuffle a little bit. And I had to stress, this is not... LucasArts adventure games are usually renowned for their, like, comedic writing. This is a deadly serious adventure game. Like, I do think there's some jokes in it, but it's meant to be, like, kind of dark and bleak and serious. And it has this really strong sense of isolation. So, and some people may not like that. But, in stark contrast to Sam and Max... this game is not nearly as cryptic. It is definitely going above. It needs to at least go into the solid territory. I'm a little hesitant on whether or not I want to put it in the classics, because this I think is in the top tier of. Oh yeah, and if you know about the story, it's about a bunch of astronauts who get lost on an alien world. It has the thing about an asteroid hitting the Earth, but that is just a preamble. And then the main story. And I think actually, I think Steven Spielberg literally was the guy who came up with the concept for the game originally, which is, I think that's kind of cool. He didn't actually have anything to do with the making of the game. And then the game itself, exchanged hands multiple times. So I don't know, this is a hard pick. Because I feel like if I put it in the solid... it's like doing it a disservice. But you know what? I'm putting it in the solid. I wish I had replayed this just before this, because I did replay a couple of games that I'm going to be talking about, because I did want to have some insight into them. I didn't want to just start chucking games into the question mark box immediately. Okay. Speaking of adventure of the box, I do think I have to address this one. Zak McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders. I have talked previously, not exhaustively, but I have mentioned before that I'm not really a big fan of this game, and it's not a surprise. This game was literally the second game second adventure game LucasArts made after Maniac Mansion. So, to me, the lack of polish on it is like super evident. Even though the version I have noticed is not the original game. It's actually, I think it's a port of the FM Towns version, which had nicer graphics and nicer music or whatever. The problem is the game's not any fun. And I did replay this just recently, yesterday in fact, before, in order to, get to have some fresh take on this. Like, is the game... And the problem is, this is a game you cannot figure out. This is a game you can't really, because I noticed something. There's no look action in the verb bar. Meaning, you can't look at items, which means Zach, your main character, he doesn't give you any useful plot descriptions, any useful narration descriptions of anything in the game. So, you just have to blindly try everything with everything. And if that's what you have to do... like, oh my god. Like, I didn't... Again, I have not played... I started playing it yesterday. I don't think I don't think I'm really very far in the game. So, I am putting it for now... Zak McCracken was kind of the reason I came up with the question mark rank anyway. I still don't feel confident enough to actually, rank it. I do want to actually play, maybe to the finish, or at least close to the end before I make a decision about this. But I have to say that even if I do end up finishing this game, I doubt it's going to get much further up here. I don't think, Sam and Max is fun. Even though it's cryptic, it's at least fun. Zak McCracken is not. It is real. It is some fucking bullshit, in my opinion. Okay, Full Throttle. This one has been on the top 10 before. I think it would be dishonest of me to put it anywhere else, so except the classics. So it's a post-apocalyptic biker story. Although I have heard I think in the official commentary, I think Tim Schafer actually says that the game's actually not supposed to be post-apocalyptic. But I like it better when it is. So I'm just gonna say it. great character, a lot of the same things, a lot of the same things that make Grim Fandango great. I mean, can you tell that I'm a Tim Schafer fanboy? I mean, the characters are great, the visuals are great, the music is excellent. And I have stated this before, the only problem with this game is that it's very short, but honestly, as I've gotten older, I don't actually mind short adventure games. I actually do prefer that, because I like it when the storytelling is kind of very concise, and it doesn't go in a million directions. So that's kind of the reason why I would kind of like, when I started playing, when I was doing the bottom 10 adventure games list, Maniac Mansion was one of those games that I excluded from when I previously did a bottom 5 adventure games list, and I decided because, well, I haven't really played Maniac Mansion very far. Like, I didn't like it. I gave up on it because I thought it was hot garbage, but I didn't actually get very far into it, so I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt and get, as far into the game as I could stomach. And because I thought it's a super short game, I'm sure I can beat it. And no, I didn't actually beat it. I think I got about, I don't know, 75% through the game, and then I gave up. But I don't typically hate on short adventure games. I actually think if you can tell the story in an economic way that is good, then, there's nothing wrong with that. And Full Throttle also has the same interface as Curse of Monkey Island, which is my favorite Monkey Island game. So, yeah, this really is... But I am now in a bit of a conundrum. You know what, I'm going to have to make a change. I don't like doing this, but I am going to have to make a slight change. Because I have said... I am bothered by the fact that I said The Dig is better than Day of the Tentacle, and I think I have said that The Dig is also better than Full Throttle, and I do think it is. So I'm going to have to downgrade them back down to the solid territory. I wish I didn't have to, but this is still not bad, because some games I know that are going to go into the flawed but good category later are games that have been on the top 10 before. So, just to keep the ranking a little bit more balanced, I'm going to just do that. Okay, finally, not finally, sorry, there's 3 more games to go before we finish with the LucasArts. Next, we have Loom, and I actually have a Let's Play of this as well. Now, this one, I would put in the flawed but good category. Now, I don't think I would ever put Loom in the top 10, because Loop's one of those games that I was not super hot about when I played it. Again, this one I did not play back in the 90s. I played this when I got it off GOG, during the previous decade, I suppose. But it is a good game. It's the flaw with it is it's kind of funny. The game is actually a little too easy, but like I said, I don't hate on short adventure games personally. I think it's very unique. I think the concept behind it is really great, and I kind of wish, I'm now part of the community that thinks that, like, Loom really deserved to have a sequel, at least one sequel, because I think the gameplay is very unique and it's quite fun, and it actually has different difficulty settings. You can actually play the game, try to beat the game on the hardest difficulty, but it's not very difficult because all the puzzles rely exclusively on using the magic spells, the drafts, which are all musical compositions. So yeah, that's the thing about it. Oh boy, I've been dreading this, because I knew it was going to come up eventually. I was going to have to talk about this. Alright, Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, the graphic adventure, or adventure game. I don't know, let's just call it Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. I mentioned this. I love Indiana Jones. I love all of the movies. I'm excited for the new movie, too. But LucasArts did not make very good Indiana Jones games. I'm sorry. I put this in the bottom 10. It deserves to go there. This game is fucking... It's not... If it was just the... the catacomb navigation garbage, then I would maybe put it in the tedious. But no, this one's bad. This one's bad. It's the same problem as with all three of these games. They suffer from all the same problems, that they're impossible to figure out. And in case of indie, the guys who made the indie games, they really love to put like puzzle randomization in as well. And this is the thing, like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, that's a great movie. Like the game is insultingly bad considering the source material. Not to say they weren't faithful to the source material, like obviously most of the LucasArts guys were, Lucasfilm fans. But yeah, no, it's not a good one. And then Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. I've had a little bit of, I wouldn't say a complete turnaround on this. I still don't like this game. But I have a review video of it, and I think this is a game that I can actually now kind of laugh at. It's not a good game. It is a bad adventure game. It's impossible to figure out, same as it's not impossible to figure out. That's the reason why it's better than... because actually there are long segments and parts in it that you can figure out by yourself. But this is another game where you really do need the walkthrough most of the time to make any kind of progress. And that's the thing that really gets my goat about it. And also the story is not very good. I'm sorry, like people... I remember when Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, I get it, people weren't big fans of it. I mean, this was in the post Star Wars prequel trilogy, so I guess, shitting on George Lucas, was kind of fashionable at the time. And then a lot of people went really hard saying, like, well, they should have just made Fate of Atlantis into a movie. No, they shouldn't have, because the story's not good. It's terrible. It's it's objectively bad. So I don't know where the hell people were coming at. Like there's a good movie. Don't get me wrong. There is a good movie about discovering Atlantis. It's called Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Disney made it in 2000, and nobody gave a shit because the Disney Renaissance had just ended. So, but this game is like, I'll put this in the tedious because I don't think it's as bad as Indy 3. It's bad, but there are some redeeming qualities. Like in the tedious section, like I'll say this, like it's goofy. The voice acting is so bad in it that that's actually the thing that I now, looking back on it, I think is the most fun part about this game is just how bad the voice acting is. A lot of the puzzles are really annoying, and the main thing I hate is that you go on this big globe-trekking adventure, and then every country you go to, it's like one screen, two screens. Like I said, I like concise adventure games, but, if you're going to do like a globe-trekking adventure, actually make it feel like the world's big. They don't do that in this game. They absolutely failed at that. And the only places where you get to like actually roam around a lot is the cave in Crete and then Atlantis itself. You go into an underground tunnel. But there's fun technical tricks and things. Like, you can check out the review video. I did actually point out, it wasn't like me just full-on shitting on Fate of Atlantis. I did point out some of the things I liked about it, but there are a lot of things I don't like about it. So that's why it ends up there. Okay, so we went through the first category, but now, of course, we're not completely done with LucasArts yet, because we still have my favorite adventure game series to go through, and that series, of course, is Monkey Island. And let's start with my favorite game, this one, Curse of Monkey Island. This is, of course, the third game in the series, and this was my introduction to the Monkey Island series, and this is one of those three games that I've already mentioned that are always in the top three for me. I mean, what can I say about it? It's like, it's visually beautiful, soundtrack's amazing, and I think it has the best version of the Scum gameplay. Which, to be fair, they debuted the interface already in full throttle. So it's the one where you click and hold the mouse button to get the verb coin open. There's a lot of jokes. And the thing about this game that is so amazing, the guys who worked on it, Jonathan Ackley and the directors, I mean, the Ackley and Ahern, they had worked on the one of them had worked on the Dig. I'm not sure if both of them had worked on the Dig, but both had worked on Full Throttle and Day of the Tentacle, and they were very, very big fans of the franchise. That is why they really got the comedy. This is this is the first Monkey Island game that was not made by the original creators. But I think it's the only one that I think perfectly marries elements of the previous games and then builds on them. Because when they tried to do that in some of the later sequels, it didn't always work so well. The other sequels have some good aspects about them as well that I like, and some that I think push them definitely into will possibly even push them into the classics territory. But yeah, so this one's a no-brainer. Didn't have to really even think about that much. Oh yeah, and this is the first Monkey Island game that had voice acting. I made the video about the Monkey Island voice actors, and I happen to love the voice actors in this game. They're just such a they're great. They're wonderful voice actors, and they got off to such a good start. Because the thing is, some of the early LucasArts adventure games that had voice acting, like Loom, and then Indy 4, they obviously struggled a little bit with the voice acting. It wasn't very good. But, it is what it is. Okay, then my least favorite. It's this one, Monkey Island 2. Oh, yeah, and I'm not ranking the special editions separately because, it is the same game, basically. It's just, flashier graphics and voice acting. Okay, so there used to be... you have not seen this entry in the bottom 5s, in the bottom 10s before, but there used to be a time that I actually did really, really dislike this game. And don't get me wrong, I do think it is handily the worst of the Monkey Island games. But, like I said, I try to look for the positives in most things, and in the case of Monkey Island, it's very easy for me to find a lot of positives. Because this game does have, for its time, fantastic graphics, it has a great soundtrack, and it has some awesome characters, like Captain Red, the Rastafarian pirate, the guy who ships you, who's helps you get around the game world. And that's actually the other thing I like about this. This is the first time in the Monkey Island series where you could go between different islands. They did that shockingly infrequently in most of the games. The only ones where you really get to do it is this game, Tales, and then the most recent one, Return to Monkey Island. So the jokes, the comedy, and even a lot of the puzzles are really a lot of fun in this game. So why do I dislike it? It is the final third of the game, really. And I need to stress, like I'm saying, the first 2/3 of this game are actually surprisingly very solid. But as solid as those first two parts are, the last act of the game, Dinky Island and everything, it's just not good. It's just really, it's very linear, it's very boring. I hate that part where you're in the tunnels and LeChuck just keeps jumping you, because it's completely random. You could end up in a completely different room. It makes solving the puzzles, the final puzzle, really hard, because you might end up getting warped to a different location. I hate that shit. I think it's infuriating. And I don't like the ending. That goes without saying. Like Ron Gilbert made the ending intentionally that way because he felt that most video game endings were too unmemorable, so he decided, let's just make something that wasn't just a stereotypical happy ending, haha. But, it just, it does not feel rewarding at all. But, it was still made by the same crew who made the first Monkey Island game. And for that, I do have to give it a recognition. It is actually still, for what I think is, a kind of a bad adventure game, it's still really, really good. And that's why these days, even though I don't like it that much, I don't ever have the heart to put it in the bottoms. So this is a hard one. I really, I'm not sure if tedious is necessarily even a good descriptor. You know what? If you're going into this and you're going to have problems with the puzzles, I think this is another hold my hand type of game. Like, I remember, of all the Monkey Island games, this is the one that I got stuck on the most, and I do remember consulting a walkthrough quite often on it. So, but if you get the special edition, it comes with a hint tool, I think. So it might not be like that bad. And the special edition, anyway, is the best way to play this game anyway, because you get the commentary with Ron Gilbert, Tim Schafer, and Dave Grossman. And it's an awesome commentary. Highly recommended. Okay, but now, let's talk about the original Secret of Monkey Island. Okay. This is the thing that I hate about myself, because very, very long time ago, I was convinced of this thing where when doing a top 10 of anything, whether it's movies or video games or anything, if you're talking about multiple entrants in a series, then I have lived by the rule that you only include one entry per series. And this is why the fact that I always put The Curse of Monkey Island in the top 3 has been a bit of a pain in the ass for me. Because I adore The Secret of Monkey Island. I think that should be pretty apparent to anybody who has watched my videos for any serious length of time, because I featured this one on those adventure game puzzle videos. I keep using screenshots of it as the title cards. I've ranked the soundtrack. And like I said, I don't hate, short adventure games. I think that they are actually, and The Secret of Monkey Island feels, if you play it for the first time, it's going to feel really short, even compared to the second game, which isn't that much longer than this one. But I love it. It is. This is the game that made adventure games. This is the official cutoff point for me when it comes to when adventure games actually became good. And it's because it did so many things that we just take for granted, like, having dialogue scenes that actually explain to you how to do the puzzles, allowing you to do multiple puzzles at the same time, not, fucking you over if you use an inventory item at the wrong time or something. I think there is like one or two kind of traps that were left in by accident by the game developers, but it's a fantastic game. This game, and Secret of Monkey Island, I would argue, is still better than 90% of all adventure games. So I do not have any hesitations about putting it in the classics. This is the classic. Like, the Curse of Monkey Island is my favorite Monkey Island game. Secret of Monkey Island is a genre-defining classic. It is, you can keep your fucking King's Quests and Mists and all the other fucking whatevers. This is the game that made adventure games good. This is why it annoys me that I only ever allow The Curse of Monkey Island. And the only and you might wonder, I've cheated before with like double entries and whatever. I've never had the heart to cheat that badly with Monkey Island. But yeah, it's a fantastic game. All right. Speaking of another fantastic game, let's talk about Tales of Monkey Island. This is the this is the first of the two this is the fifth game. The first one that LucasArts didn't make. So this was made by Telltale Games, and I just recently replayed this when I did the Monkey Island voice acting video, and I was just reminded of just how fucking great it is. It's genuinely just really, really fun. And the fact that it's an episodic game, that was the really funny part, because I actually finished episode 4 first. And then I started like jumping around all the different chapters. I played like chapters 2 and 5, and then I jumped into 3. And it's really funny. I think chapter 3 is my favorite, just because it's almost pure puzzle solving. Like, the story bits aren't actually even that important in that. It's just like, there's puzzle A and puzzle B and puzzle C, and you're just kind of going around solving the different puzzles. I really loved. I remember liking episode 3. I was actually thinking that it wasn't going to be that much fun. Maybe I'm just remembering it through rose tinted glasses or something. And then I played and like, oh my god, this is actually legit good. But I think episode 4 is actually my favorite That's the trial and execution of Guybrush Threepwood. That's when you go to back to Flotsam Island and you're put on trial, and then all the crazy stuff that happens there. It's unfortunate because, though, that I discovered that the GOG version is really buggy. But there are easy fixes for the bugs, but that was the one thing that hindered my enjoyment. And originally I played this on the Wii. The Wii version, of course, has a lot of file compression junk that is really infuriating. And especially in the final chapter of the game has this really horrendous bug where Guybrush turns invisible in some of the cutscenes. And that's really annoying. But, you know, I still enjoyed it a lot when I played it for the first time on the Wii. Now, this is another hard one. I don't know if this one, though, is good enough to go into the classics. Because Siege of Spinner K, I'm not a big fan of it. I replayed it because I wanted to remember, I wanted to remind myself if it was... Oh, yeah, and because I needed footage for the LeChuck thing. Episode 1 is great. Episode 3 I love. Episode 4 is also good. Episode 5, it goes very into, you know, this has the darkest of all the endings in the Monkey Island series. One of the things that I always hated is that they never really followed up on this. They made Tales of Monkey Island ends on a bit of a they resolve the main storyline, but then they leave this little teaser at the end of a potential follow-up, and kind of, you know, they kind of hint at a potential sequel that they never ended up actually doing, and that's because all the LucasArts guys eventually ended up leaving Telltale, and then Telltale as a company kind of went to shitter. This one, I'm a bit mixed on. I guess because, well, there is also the thing that some Monkey Island fans were very critical about. I thought it was a little bit, you know, I honestly didn't bother me that much. But in the first couple of episodes, and they later did poke fun at it themselves, the Telltale guys later in episode 4, I think, that a lot of the secondary characters had pretty much the exact same character model, so they all had like the same body shape and whatever. Yeah, you know, that can be a little bit distracting the first time you play this game, but honestly, I think it's kind of charming. And I also love the fact that they kind of made, you know, they kind of kill off one of the lookalikes off screen during episode 4's events. So I guess we have to put this in the solid. It is a good game. Don't get me wrong. It is a fantastic. I was having a lot of fun when I recently just replayed this, but I guess putting it in the classics, yeah, I think that's a bit too much. Like, these two, without question, deserve to go up here. Then Escape from Monkey Island, the black sheep of the franchise, if you will. But look, I'm going to be just bluntly honest here. I like this game a lot. I actually have a full Let's Play of this on my second channel as well. Now, this game was very controversial in its day because it was the first 3D Monkey Island game. It uses the same game engine as Grim Fandango. But I think it actually does some major improvements over the previous game, over Grim Fandango. And still has great music, still has great voice acting. And I like the puzzles. But I do think... I don't think I have any hesitations about where this deserves to go category-wise. This one definitely deserves to go in the flawed but good territory. Some people complain about like the character models and whatever, and that's not fair because the game engine that this was built on, the Grim Fandango game engine, you know, Grim Fandango came out in 1998, but the game engine was made like back in the 1996, and this game came out in 2000. So, yeah, obviously it's not going to look as hot, but I think people have shit on it a little bit more than it deserved, because I think Bill Tiller's, like, graphic design, Bill Tiller was also the graphic designer on Curse. I think his design actually comes through very well in the character models, and they're meant to be over the top. People were, like, complaining about, like, the anatomy of all the characters back in the day. I remember this. They're supposed to be like, you see you see the box art. The characters are clearly supposed to be kind of goofy and cartoony looking, and like there was some weird anatomy in fucking Curse. You know, I don't know where people were coming off of with that, but I love Looker Island. I love some of the jokes in this. Like let me say something. This game is almost painfully 90s. But I don't mind that. I like it when games actually kind of show their age a bit, because I think that's very charming in its own way. Granted, some of the jokes can be a bit, not all the jokes are funny. You know, there are problems. There are problems with the game, and some of the puzzles are definitely, not self-explanatory. Like I'm definitely not saying that like all the criticism that this game got is like not deserved. People seem to forget sometimes that this is the second best-selling game in the series. Curse is number one, and Escape is like a very close second place. Like these two games briefly revived the franchise. But then, because LucasArts stopped making anything except Star Wars games after 2000, like that's the reason why the franchise went dormant. And then they resurrected it with the special editions and Tales, and then it went dormant again. And then we end up with here, Return to Monkey Island. This is the sixth game, the one that Ron Gilbert made with the terrible toy box. Oh, yeah, God. Whew. I remember recently I was talking about this with my friend Ville. I accidentally called it the terrible toolbox, which sounds infinitely worse. Like, no, yeah, but... okay, Return to Monkey Island. So this game returned back to the 2D point-and-click style. Had you can probably tell, a drastically different art style, which I remember got some heated responses. I don't like the art style myself, but I think people were being... I mean, I shouldn't be surprised at the internet. People were being just terrible shitheads for no reason. The finished game, I have to say, I did not like the first half of this game. The first half of the game really rubbed me the wrong way. And I did not like the premise that it was like a middle-aged Guybrush telling this... it was an older Guybrush telling his son about his adventures when he was a middle-aged Guybrush. I felt it was very insulting to me that they literally just revisited all the locations from the first game. Because, they did it in Escape from Monkey Island as well. But in Escape from Monkey Island, it was actually kind of cool because we had never actually done that. We had never actually... Monkey Island was featured in a couple of the games, but you didn't get to explore it or anything. It was just like part of the finale of the third game. This one felt like it was just retreading all around, and I hate that. This is going to come up with another game later that's going to go on the ranking. We're not quite there yet. But Return to Monkey Island, yeah, where I think the game finally got good was the second half. That's when you went through all the different islands, when you're looking for the golden keys, and you have all these multiple puzzles for you to solve and things. I did like the characters and things. Like the new characters were mostly great, except the new evil pirate leaders or whatever they were. They were kind of whatever. They were very mediocre. But LeChuck's crew was great. I loved LeChuck's crew. And like I said, the second half where you're going between all the different islands, you have all these different puzzles, that felt like classic Monkey Island to me again. That felt great. That part was awesome. Everything before that was very hit and miss, and more miss than hit. So I did like Rob Paulsen came back as Bob in this. I did like some of the recognizable voice actors, and it bothered me. Earl Bowen didn't do LeChuck's voice, but I guess Earl Bowen was like really, really bad. His health was really bad when they did this, so I'm not gonna hold that against it. So I do still think this game is better than Monkey Island 2, hands down, because, well, it comes with a hint feature, and I did end up using it a couple of times. Sorry. So, this goes in the flawed but good territory for me. I had really no expectations for the game, because I honestly, after Tales of Monkey Island, I was pretty much like, I had pretty much, and I talked about this in the podcast and nobody listened to, but after Tales of Monkey Island had kind of signed off on the Monkey Island series, like, okay, it's officially over now. There's not going to be any more games, But yeah, I was shocked and surprised when it got made, and I just kind of wish the game would have been a little bit better. I don't think that was an unreasonable expectation of me that, if it's going to be like Ron Gilbert's grand return to the game that made him famous, that he would have done a slightly better job of it. But, it's not terrible, but, it wasn't great either. Very, very middle of the road. But like I said, the second half, I did like Bermuda. Yeah, Bermuda was my favorite location in the new game. That part was great. All right, we're done with the LucasArts. Now it's time to jump into Sierra, and there's a lot of games to cover here. So, you know what? Here I'm going to actually now do the thing that I was originally planning to do, and I'm going to go through... Oh, yeah. A couple of these games, though, I'm going to stress, are actually not technically Sierra games, but because Monkey Island was the only series that I really want to just, talk about separately as its own thing, so I didn't want... So... There's going to be a couple of games here that are not actually Sierra games, but I put them in the Sierra category because they're the parts of game series that were started by Sierra. But there's also... Here we have, a first big bunch of games that I'm going to put in the question mark box just because I haven't played these games enough to really have an informed opinion on it. And we're going to have to start with the Larrys. Larry 2... This is Larry 2. This is one of those text parser Larry games, and I have finished one text parser Larry game, the original one, because it's very short and easy. Larry 2, it takes forever to walk anywhere and get anything done. Like, I just run out of patience with this game so quickly that. Yeah, it's just not fun. Same, Larry 3, different day, same shit, yeah. Like, maybe part of this might be go into the hold my hand territory. Like, maybe one of these days I'll have the patience, like, I'll just pick up a walkthrough and then, just play it all the way to the end. But, to me, the fun part about Larry is exploring the game world and finding all the in-jokes and stuff. And it's not really a lot of fun if you just have to blindly follow what a walkthrough is telling you. So it does not make for a good gameplay experience. And Larry 5, same shit. Now, this one might surprise some people because this is a point-and-click Larry. But the game just takes so long to get going. I don't like it. It's way too... The start is way too short, and I'm not really a big fan of the storyline. Like, there's supposed to be this evil corporation, and, I am kind of curious, because I don't really know much about Passionate Patty. But the very little that I've seen of her, I'm not super... I'm not super impressed or anything. Like, so, the middle Larrys... Just never been a huge fan of those, and but it's also, to be fair, like I've never really gotten very far into any of them. Now, and the last to put in the question mark territory is this one, King's Quest IV. I bought the the joint package of the latter 6 of the 80s King's Quest titles on GOG. I finished one I have never even started, and this one I played for 15 minutes and then I killed myself walking down a flight of stairs and I gave up. Like, maybe this is a good game, but yeah, like that fact that you can just like that's the number one reason I have a hard time getting into old Sierra games, is like, because you do something that seems completely insignificant and it kills you. Like, that to me seems like such hot garbo. I can't even. Okay, but those are the question mark territory. I'm just gonna put there. So those are games that I played a little bit, but, not enough to really pass judgment on, so I'm not even going to bother talking about them. Okay, but what I am going to talk about is Gabriel Knight. I'm going to jump into Gabriel Knight 3. And this is the last of the forever top 3ers. Gabriel Knight 3 was the first Gabriel Knight I played, and for about a period of 10 years or more, it was the only Gabriel Knight game that I had played. I read about the other Gabriel Knight games online, but I couldn't find them anywhere. But I played this game incessantly. I still sometimes do. I sometimes I love the story, the mystery, but I particularly love the characters. Like, I think Gabriel Knight 3 doesn't get enough credit for the fact that it has one of the best casts. Like, a cast of characters that you really, really become invested in because you spend so much time with those characters. So, like, this is something that I don't think either one of the previous Gabriel Knights really got right. Like, they have some good characters too, don't get me wrong. There are some fantastic characters, especially Gabriel Knight 2. But the thing is, like, I hated when adventure games treat secondary characters as expendable. And there are certain adventure games that are kind of notorious for that. So that's the thing that I like about Day of the Tentacle. That's the thing I like about Dig. That's the thing I like about Grim Fandango. And Curse of Monkey Island. Like, all of these games have characters that you talk to multiple times and you get to know and you get to invest it in their struggles and what have you. And in Gabriel Knight 3, you literally just spend the whole game talking to these characters. You could argue maybe that the mystery in it is a bit weak because it's so blatantly obvious who the bad guy is by the time they're introduced. Yeah, this game, and also the thing I really hate is that it seems like the entire adventure gaming scene kind of completely like snoozed on Gabriel Knight 3 because I love the gameplay. I love the fact that you can move the camera around freely and explore the world. It's a point and click. This is the way that I think all 3D point and click adventure games should have been made, instead of the way that they're now done, which is that they're just 2D point and click adventure games with 3D character models, which is, in other words, they're not really 3D. They're just pseudo 3D or whatever the fuck. Like that's the thing. That is the most offensive thing to me about the fact how little people cared about this. But to be fair, it came out at a time when Sierra was really in the shitter, and adventure games had really like gone down the drain by this point as well. So I guess that's the reason. But this is a highly recommended game. If you've not played it, you should absolutely. Okay. Gabriel Knight 2, The Beast Within. This is a game that I've had my opinion on it has really, really shifted. I have an old review video of the entire Gabriel Knight series, and then I do have Let's Plays of all 3 games. Ironically, we started the first Let's Play I did was actually of this game with Retro Kaiser. In my review of this game, I kind of talk shit about it a bit, like it's okay, it's really funny and hilarious, but it's not a great game. But actually, I think it's fantastic. I think it's really funny. It is a flawed game. Don't get me wrong. There, especially during the finale, they start pulling the Sierra shit, where you have to fail in order to know what the correct solution to the puzzles at the end of the game are. And that is terrible design, but the fact that it is real actors playing the characters, I just love it. It just makes me feel like, to me, it just gives off vibes like, oh, this is what like a Gabriel Knight TV show would have looked like, and I would have watched the shit out of that. That would have been awesome. And still great music, still great puzzles. Technically, from a technological point of view, it is a bit rough around the edges, but I love it. I absolutely love it. I've come around to this game a lot since I did that review video all those years ago. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think the story does have that thing where it's a bit top heavy. That in the sense that the story takes a very, very long time to get going. But there's a lot of hilarious stuff in the game before you get there, so you won't be bored. But it takes a while before the werewolf shit starts happening. So that's a hard part. This is a hard one. I wanna put it in the solid so badly, but I don't think that's fair. I do think it has to go in the flawed but good territory because it is good. It's really really good, but it is also very flawed. Not as flawed as some of the other games I'm about to discuss, but yeah, that's a tough one. All right, in a similar fashion, I have had a bit of a turnaround on Gabriel Knight: The Sins of the Fathers because when I did the review, I was kind of paying lip service to the old adage, like, ooh, like Gabriel Knight: Sins of the Fathers is like it's the all-time classic, and then Gabriel Knight 2 was something different, and then Gabriel Knight 3, oh yeah, we went back to the kind of classic style again. I gotta be honest, I'm not really a big fan of Sins of the Fathers. It's got too much of the old Sierra in it. That is to say, the bullshit Sierra in it. It's not the kind of game where you can fuck yourself over. Well, actually, yes, you can fuck yourself over, but it's fairly obvious where those parts are. And it's not as bad as like it's not Indie 3 bad. I do think the characters are great. I think the art direction is great. I think the music is great. When I played this for the first time, I was a bit struck by how different it was to Gabriel Knight 3. One of the things that really takes me out of it is the narrator. There's like the Jamaican woman who narrates you instead of it being Gabriel's internal monologue in the third game, which I loved. And in the second game as well, even though he wasn't Tim Curry in the second game. He was Tim Curry here. I think this game, I wouldn't say that it's overrated. It's still really good. I still think it's a great mystery adventure game with a good plot and everything. And I do think there's a lot of depth to it, but I do think this game is also slightly guilty of treating some of the supporting characters as expendable. And I don't, and the conversations, the more I think about it, like the conversations feel so artificial and weird. There's no natural flow to it at all, in stark contrast to number 2 and 3. And there is a lot of cryptic shit in it. So this one I'm honestly a little hesitant. Like, there are definitely parts of this game that you cannot figure out without a walkthrough. So I'm wondering is it really bad enough to go into Hold My Hand? Because Hold My Hand, like, these games can still be enjoyable. Don't get me wrong. It's not like these are awful. Like, it's once you cross over to here. But I think I'm gonna err on the side of putting it in the flawed but good territory. My opinion has definitely shifted a little bit on this game. I personally prefer Beast Within now. More than I did back when I did the review video. Okay, so here's the first of the games that isn't technically a Sierra game, but we're still talking about Gabriel Knight. So this is the Gabriel Knight 20th Anniversary Edition, or Sins of the Father's 20th Anniversary Edition. Sorry, I didn't realize the image was this fucking big. I was assuming that it was just going to scale them correctly. Okay, so this is a remake of the first game. And I do think this remake makes some noted improvements over the first game, and it has a hint tool. It has a lot of things that help you out. In return, though, they did do certain things that I'm not a big fan of. One of them that you can see it clearly here. They changed Gabriel's hairstyle to match the later games, which I hated that. I liked Gabriel's. That's one of the standout things about the original Sins of the Fathers was Gabriel's ridiculous mop hair, like that made absolutely no fucking sense. And I guess that was the reason why they changed it, because the characters are 3D modeled in this, and they couldn't pull it off, I guess, convincingly or whatever. And it does not have the same voice cast as the original, but I'm not holding that against them. It felt weird, the actor who played Gabriel, because he's so clearly just doing an imitation of Tim Curry's Gabriel voice, but after a while I got used to it. It does streamline and change. They did add a few puzzles. It wasn't like just a one-to-one remake. They actually added some new puzzles into it as well, so there's some new content. Is that supposed to be Mosley? I'm wondering, like that's clearly Malia, and that's Grace. I don't know who the hell this guy's supposed to be. I was a bit weirded out when I saw his face. Yeah, maybe that's Mosley. He looked a lot thinner. I always thought Mosley was a bit more pudgy. But anyway, yeah, so I'm a bit hard-pressed. I don't want to say that I like this better than The Beast Within. I don't. Now, it's not really a good look to put these all here. You know, I do have to give this recognition. It is a solid remake. Some of in the earlier versions, there were some bugs with the 3D models. I think they fixed those later with patches and whatever. So if you want to play a more up-to-date version of Sins of the Fathers, then this I think is your best option. So I do think it deserves to, you know, I do think it deserves to go into the solid territory. Low-key, I'm gonna be honest. Like, if any of these, if there was any one of, so if there was like an alternate top 10 where I would knock off Gabriel Knight 3 from its perch, or somehow disqualified it from the running, there would be no question in my mind that I would put Gabriel Knight 2 in the top 10. Like I said, being a flaw does not preclude it from being in the top 10 in my eyes. All right, and now let's quickly knock out the rest of the King's Quest games that I've played, because honestly, I have not played the vast majority of King's Quest games. King's Quest 1 I have finished, but there is a caveat here. It wasn't the original version. It was the VGA made fan point-and-click version. I was done in partly in the style of the Larry 1 VGA remake, which was an official game, but that was like a fan-made recreation. Now this one is a bit. This one's a bit difficult for me, but I guess. Whoops. This I think this one also deserves to go in the flawed but good territory. It's a very tiny adventure game. Actually, now that I think about it, I might have actually played a bit of King's Quest 2, but I don't think I got very far in that. So maybe that should be in the rank as well. But I'm gonna draw the line. No more last minute additions here. Unless it's like a really obvious one that I should talk about. Like, you know, this is the game that inspired The Secret of Monkey Island. Ron Gilbert has, you know, it inspired Maniac Mansion, which in turn led to The Secret of Monkey Island. So this is an important part. You know what? Actually, let me rephrase that. I'll put this in the hold my hand territory, because I do think there are parts that you need a walkthrough for. And if you play the original version, I think in that cave segment you can actually die by stepping off the planks or something. I don't want to set up people with the wrong expectations for this game, because I played an updated version of it. It's fun, but you definitely have to go into it. Oh, by the way, I realized that I've named the file there incorrectly. It says King's Quest 6, but this is 5. Okay, King's Quest 5. I'm not gonna front. The only reason I played this game and finished it was because of the JonTron video, but it is really, really fun. I like the characters. This game is also known for having kind of dodgy voice acting, but I think it actually works. It makes the game a whole lot more fun. King's Quest 6, 5. This is a game that this definitely is a hold my hand game. There are so many parts in this game that you can screw yourself over, and you have to save often, which is the thing that I don't like about old Sierra games. The fact that you have to be saving your game constantly in case you fuck up, or so that once you fuck up, you can just, you know, not do the thing that caused you to die in the first place. That is kind of like the main thing that honestly is kind of keeping me from even playing any of the Space Quest games. Like, I know they're probably a lot of fun, but I know for a fact that I'll be dying so much that it's going to get frustrating, and I don't know. So what happened with King's Quest 5, I think in 2018, I picked a Game FAQ walkthrough that looked good. I started playing the game. I kept reading ahead a little bit every time to know exactly what I was supposed to do. I still fucked up a few times, but I had a really, really good time. This is a great adventure. There's so many great parts to it that I highly recommend. This, out of all the games here, King's Quest 5 might actually be the best one in the hold my hand territory thus far. Sam & Max, I think, is a close second, but 5 was actually legitimately really, really good. Oh, okay. we're about to talk about Larry, but there's a couple of one-offs that I have to still, this one, I don't think I need to say much. This was in the bottom 10. It's Troll's Tale. I mean, it is an adventure game for kids, but Jesus Christ, this game is this game's bad. Is bad. No two ways about it. Even for a kid's adventure game, it's not. Phantasmagoria. This is a guilty pleasure game for me. I do like the fact that there is a hint tool in the game, actually, and it tells you where to go. You still do. It's technically, but it does have a lot of technical flaws. It is a flawed game, absolutely. And I have not finished it. I got stuck in the final chapter because the final chapter is really the kind of interactive movie thing where it's basically a long cutscene and you have to make split-second decisions to make it to the end. But I managed to get to that point, I think, without using a walkthrough originally. Although, I don't have a full let's play of this, but I did a stream that I edited for YouTube later. And it is a game where it's kind of easy to get stuck. It's technically very, very flawed. But I find a lot of great enjoyment in it, similar to The Beast Within. And it is another one of these spooky adventure games. So this one is a bit hard because I'm not sure if Hold My Hand is a good descriptor for it, because the game has a hint tool. And I think the hint tool is actually really good. I think I'm gonna just put it here in the flawed but good territory because, you know, I like it. I think it's a good. Okay, then finally, now we're finally up to the Larrys that I do have opinions on, and actually you can see my opinions on it because I reviewed 3 of the Larry games that I'm about to talk about. Okay, Larry 1 okay. I had the Leisure Suit Larry collection, which had the VGA version of this, and not the original text adventure version. Not the text adventure version. I mean the parser version. But I have subsequently bought this from GOG, and the GOG version comes with the original Larry one, and I have beaten that as well. I did that on stream once. So again, I have to stress that I don't mind these short adventure games. Larry 1, it's a really, really fun game. It's like, yeah, you can die very easily, but because the game is so short, I think that's actually its biggest saving grace, because it is so short, it doesn't take you a long while to get back to where you were originally in the VGA version. In the text parser version, Larry does walk very slowly, so it takes a little bit longer, but because it's so self-contained, it is a legitimately really, really good adventure game. Now, if it's so good that it deserves to go into the classics territory, I don't think so. Larry was not an innovator. I have to be honest about this. I love the Larry games because of the comedy. Okay. The misunderstood thing about Larry games, and I think which is going to come up with Magna Cum Laude in a minute, is the fact that, you know, they had sex jokes and adult jokes or whatever, but the thing that is the pull for these games is the comedy. The comedy is the reason people love Larry so much, and the fact that he's a lovable loser that you love rooting for. This is a solid game, absolutely. So I am putting it in the solid territory, and this goes for the VGA and the text parser version. But I think I said this in the review that I highly recommend playing the VGA version first and then the text parser version, because it's much easier to figure out the puzzles with the point and click interface. There's a big problem with the text parser Larry version that a lot of objects in the game world are just not obvious, and a lot of times the game requires you to be close to something. In the point and click version, Larry always walks directly to the items when you have to interact with them. Okay, and then Larry 6, Shape Up or Slip Out. This is the first Larry game I ever played. I mentioned that in the review. And the first version that I played of this was actually the voiced version. And then when I got the Larry collection, I was disappointed to find out that it didn't have the voice acting for some reason. But there are actually some things about the non-voiced version. There are actually more sound effects, and they do play at the more correct moments. But yeah, the voice acted version probably is most people's favorite. In the review, I criticized this game. I think the puzzle structure is a little too obvious. Okay, people are free to yell at me in the comments about this, because Larry 1 is really no different. Larry 1 you keep giving items to the girls until they until the plot moves along, or until they have sex with you. And in the first game, it's only the first girl. I mean the last girl, and yeah, in this game too, it's only the last girl who does it. I love the girls in the game. I think they have great personalities and they're fun. But I said this about Larry 6, and I think it holds true for in stark contrast to Larry 7. Larry 7, the puzzles were a lot more interesting, and you got to do a whole bunch of things besides just going on this big fetch quest. And there are great puzzles in this game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's bad by any means. But the thing that has always struck me about Larry 6 is like how much better Larry 1 and Larry 7 are in comparison to it. It's still a good game, and I really, really would want to put it in the solid territory. But this game is, in a few parts, I think, intentionally cryptic. So, am I gonna have to put it in the flawed but good territory category? I hate doing this, but I think I do have to. I think I do have to put it there. And Larry 7, Love for Sale. I think I said this in the reviews that I think this is my favorite Larry game, and it is true. Don't get me wrong. This is a really, really good Larry game. I love the art style. Like I said, the puzzles are great. I love the most of the girls in this are also really, really funny. I think the final girl, honestly, in this one is bad. Same for Shamra, actually, in 6. So weirdly, like the final pursuit of Larry's in all of these games, they always end up being like way more disappointing than all the other ones along the way. And like I said, the puzzles are like the Liar's Dice in Do Me More. Actually, yes, I don't have a Let's Play of this, but I have. Me and Retrocaster did a one-off where we played Liar's Dice with Do Me More, and I played really, really badly in that. I think because we were recording a Let's Play, I was a bit distracted. So because I look back on that video and I'm like, oh my god, why am I playing like such hot garbage? And here's the thing. Well, one thing where I think Larry 6 is actually better is the soundtrack. I think Larry 7's soundtrack actually, it has like this, it actually has a very varied soundtrack, but I think the soundtrack is kind of incongruous a little bit within itself. And there are some production oversights, I think, as well. And they brought back the text parser. I wasn't a big fan of that. This one also does have parts that I think are a bit difficult to figure out. Maybe not impossible, but a bit difficult to figure out without a walkthrough. Overall, though, I do think it's a solid game. Now I'm really just struggling how solid exactly. Because I do think, just content-wise, it's more robust than Larry 1. So I think it has to go into the solid, but I don't think it can really go into the classics territory. I don't think it's good enough for that. I think it's a little too rough around the edges, but it's not so rough around the edges that it feels the flawed but good category credentials. Then Larry Reloaded. This again is not actually a Sierra game, but it was made by Al Lowe, and that is like I said, I would have had to put all the Larrys in a separate category, like Monkey Island did, like I did with Monkey Island. I don't think, I said that this is objectively, I think, the best version of Larry 1. I actually think this might deserve to go into the classics territory because I legitimately think it's better than the original. It is really, really good. I would think that this might, in fact, have a chance of beating it out. Okay. There is a flaw with this game that, because it was a crowd-funded remaster. They basically tried to cram almost every name of every backer into the game somehow. And I remember the first time I played it, I thought that's a bit obnoxious. Like, yes, okay, it's great that so many people loved Larry to remake the game. I played the game for Larry, not for these other guys. But then on a more recent Let's Play of it, not Let's Play, sorry, on a more recent playthrough of it, I started to pay more attention to well, are the backer names actually so obnoxiously obvious? And I came to the realization, well, actually, no, not really. I mean, they are there. They're hidden into the game world, and you can find them if you really, really want to. But I think this was a really, really good facelift. I think, honestly, way better than Gabriel Knight 20th Anniversary Collection. So, 20th Anniversary Edition, what is it, remake, whatever. So, I actually do think Larry Reloaded does deserve to go into the classics. It is a legit, really, really good. Like, I wish other game remakes were this good. Like, I have seen my fair share of game remakes, and very few have been this solid. Alright, and then there's one more game to talk about. Some people are going to have a problem with me even bringing this game up, because a lot of people don't consider this either a proper Larry game or a proper adventure game. But this was on the bottom 10. So, of course, I have to mention it. Larry Magna Cum Laude, and I do have the uncut version myself. I don't think anything really nasty got into when I video captured this. The thing with this game, I think it's really funny. I think the cutscenes are funny. I like the game world. The actual gameplay part of it is tedious. I will admit, without any hesitation, this is going into the lower ranks because it was in the bottom 10. I defended it a bit in the even in the bottom 10. Like I said, that this was the game on the bottom 10 that had the least amount of actual flaws. I think that might not actually be completely accurate. I actually do think some of the girls in this are really fun as well. And the frat setting, like I said, I'm not a big fan of it, but it makes sense. It makes sense because this is Larry's nephew. But all those mini games, that's the thing that I had a hard problem with it. Like, it's barely an adventure game. The actual gameplay part of it is just super, super tedious. I just, when you're talking to the girls, that's fun. When you find all the weird shit in the overworld, that's fun. Everything else is kind of not a huge fan of it. Okay, so I had a nasty feeling this was going to happen. We're about halfway through the rank, and my throat is getting a bit sore. So we're going to do one more category, and then we're going to wrap it up for this first half, and then we'll do all the other solo and whatever adventure game series next time, because like I said, my throat is getting really sore. I didn't know how long it was going to take me to talk about each individual entry. It's clearly taking me a lot longer than I envisioned, so we're going to be splitting this off into 2 videos after all. But we will still do Revolution Software. This is the last of the big companies that I want to talk about. Alright, and again, we're going to start with a game that I don't have a solid take on, and that's Lure of the Temptress. It was their first adventure game. I actually recently did play a little bit of this, and I couldn't get out of... Well, I got out of the dungeon at the very beginning. I gotta say, I'm not a big fan of this setting. Like, fantasy games, they really, really gotta, like, up the ante for them to actually... to be at all interesting to me, unless it's something like Heroes of Might and Magic that I have like fond childhood memories of. This one it doesn't really seem to do a lot for me, but I will grant. But like I said, I've maybe now spent a grand total of 30 minutes playing the game in total, so I really can't pass judgment on it based on just that. I really would have to see more of the game world to really judge it properly. So that's the reason I'm not going to be talking about that. I mentioned the Dragon Sphere was kind of similar, and I think I've like Flight of the Amazon Queen is another free adventure game that you get from GOG, and I think I've seen like the intro, and then I stopped in the middle of the intro. I didn't even get into the game. So there's that. Okay, so the obvious topic with Revolution is the Broken Sword series, but there is another adventure game series that they're known for, and that's the Steel Sky games. And Beneath the Steel Sky, this one, of course, was on my original top 10. It's a free adventure game. I think it's one of the best free adventure games you can get. Is it an all-time classic? I kind of want to say it is, but the difficulty in judging that is the fact that, like, I don't think it innovated anything specifically, but it has so many good things about it. I love the voice acting. I love the plot. I love how dark it gets. I'm trying to remember right now, were there parts in it where I needed a walkthrough? I don't think that there was. Like, there are parts where you can die, definitely, towards the end. But it is a very, very solid adventure game. I like it. I like it a lot. So I think it's definitely at least in the solid territory. I've always kind of put it on the bottom half of the top 10, but there's actually not a really any good reason why it shouldn't be in the top 5. Because this might be a bit take some people by surprise. I think this game might actually be better than the first Broken Sword, which, you know, some people might find that a bit hard to believe, but I legitimately do believe that. Now, here's a game that I have been thinking about actually making a video on, but I haven't, and I don't know how interesting this would be for anybody anyway. But Beyond the Steel Sky, you know, talk about sequels coming in late, like almost 30 years after the original game. Beyond the Steel Sky is another, it's an amazing game. I think it's one of the best adventure game sequels that I've ever played, and for a modern adventure game, like this game, okay, I want to say that this game did a lot of things right that some other modern adventure games have done wrong. It does have one flaw. You are in direct control of Robert, and it is sort of a point-and-click adventure game. Not really, because the mouse cursor doesn't actually appear anywhere, but you do use the mouse to make selections and things in the game. The only thing that I don't like about this game is the walking. I think Robert walks way too slowly. It wouldn't be that bad if the locations weren't too... if the locations were pretty smallish, but some of the locations are really big. So when you start running and Robert just kind of does this like a leisurely jog, it's kind of like, are you kidding me? Like, you know, I got places to be, I got a game to beat. But the story and the characters, this is what I like, is that it tells its own story. It picks up years after the events of the original game. Union City has, turned into a completely new kind of hellhole from the previous one. But it has this fun element to it with a dystopic world. I love the art style, and I love the story beats in it. It did bother me a lot that Lady Piermont does not look like Lady Piermont, but beyond that little hiccup, yeah, I think this was actually... I legitimately liked this better than the most recent Broken Sword. It did do a few nods to the original game, but it wasn't like slavishly, loyal to it. It actually did its own thing, and that's the reason I respect it a lot. So that, in my view, deserves to put it in the equal grounds with the original. And I'm hesitant to say if I like it better than the original Steel Sky, but definitely they are on the equal. Like this is a super solid sequel. It's a shame that it took them so long to make it, but it is legitimately just a really good game. Okay, next up we're going to be talking about Broken Sword, so we have to start with the original. The original is my favorite. Now here's the thing. There used to be a time when I would have put it definitely up here with the classics. But my opinion on the original Broken Sword has changed a little bit, and I am talking about the original, not the director's cut, which did add new stuff, but then removed like all the blood and the deaths, which I thought was kind of stupid. Like, story writing wise, yes, this is a really good game. I think the plot is its biggest virtue. It visually looks really good, but it also has a very inconsistent visual look. Like, all the different cutscenes were made by different animation studios, and it definitely shows. But it's also a very easy adventure game. It's one of those adventure games where you don't really get stuck ever, because the puzzle solutions are limited by your options. And yes, you can die, but the deaths are, telegraphed very obviously. So, you have plenty of time to make decisions and, save the game before anything bad happens and things like that. And I love these globe-trekking adventure games. It's very similar to Gabriel Knight, and that's kind of one of the things I like about it. But the first game is very technically rough around the edges. There's a lot of things that they did actually better in the immediate sequel, which is kind of funny because Broken Sword 2 is a rushed sequel. So I don't know. This is a hard one for me. There's enough flaws. There's enough hiccups in this that I don't really feel comfortable putting it in the classics. But I think I have to put it there. This is a bit of a. I feel a bit mixed on this. But there's another game that I'm gonna have to talk about in a minute that I am gonna have to put in the solids because I don't believe it belongs in the classics. So just to keep the ratings consistent, I'm gonna put it here. But this is just barely cracking into the classics for me. It's a good game, don't get me wrong, but I do think that there are some obvious flaws. But I think I just for the story writing credentials, I do have to give it the recognition it deserves. Then we have to talk about the worst game in the series. And I often, even the last time I did the bottom 10 adventure games list, I didn't really want to go into The Angel of Death or The Mysteries of the Ark. Because I have a whole review video on this, and I always feel like in the top 10 is that's not the place to really bear my dirty laundry about a game, all that jazz. But let me just say why this is a bad game. It's a bad game because it doesn't look like it's finished. It looks like, especially compared to how the previous game was, which was a fantastic game. Cutscenes in this game are awful. Characters, when they talk to each other, they don't gesticulate, they stand stiff as a statue and only their mouth moves. That is super, super lazy. That is like pre-alpha levels of, we'll finish this off. We'll finish this off later. It's like they didn't bother even doing the extra steps to do that. The story writing is terrible. There is a mystery to it, but there's no like natural transition from one point of the story to the other. It's like they had an outline and then they just kind of followed it blindly, and they don't really that's the thing that I talked about in the original review video, that I had no idea right up until the finale that the Ark of the Covenant even had anything to do with this story. And that's when it was only at that point it started to click for me, so the bearded guy at the beginning was Moses, I think, maybe, and then but there's no obvious hints. I mean, you get one of the cherubs that goes on the ark at the fairly early, but you don't have any context for that. There's nothing right up until the finale that even hints that this is about the Ark of the Covenant. And the bad guys are just really generic, and I would even forgive that though if the story was at least halfway decent, which it isn't. And there is so much dumb shit in this game that it infuriates me. It insults me on an intellectual level. And the fact that it's part of my favorite adventure game series and that it is this bad is the main thing that's so insulting. I don't know. It's not this isn't they harped it off to some third-party company that didn't give a shit. This was still Revolution Software itself, the original company making the game, and they made it this fucking awful. Charles Cecil, should apologize for this game every chance he gets because it is that fucking bad. He even put his name on the box, the audacity. This is, and the gameplay is bad. The gameplay is honestly, it might be the worst thing about it, how you can't walk straight most of the time. Unquestionably, this is an unredeemably bad adventure game. The main thing, the only thing that I would say that is even slightly positive is that it's honestly so fucking terrible that you can make fun of it. I don't have a Let's Play of this either, but, you know, when I was making the bottom 10, I actually streamed a good bunch of this game, and then I added a couple of those streams on YouTube. So you can actually, you can watch me play this with commentary. Oh yeah, and I have a Let's Play. I have Let's Plays of the first 2 Broken Swords, and I'm a bit curious which one I want to talk about next. Okay, let's talk about The Sleeping Dragon. The Sleeping Dragon is a game that gets a lot of shit from the Broken Sword fans, and I don't get why, because this is hands down the second best game of the series, without any question. It is a 3D adventure game where you have direct control of the characters, and don't get me wrong, I don't think that they did. I do think that, especially on PC, the game's a bit difficult to play. On consoles, it's a little bit better. It's a direct sequel to the first game. It follows its story. It has a lot of the same recognizable characters. Like, this is what I like about it. It doesn't treat... This is another thing that I hate about the Angel of Death. It treats its side characters as a completely secondary, non-essential. And this game does not. It has great characters. In fact, they even name drop a few in the next game. I like the villains. The cutscenes are amazing. I do think there's a little bit of, like, set dressing a little bit with it. Like, the climbing parts, those are just spectacle. They don't add anything to the game. Some people don't like the stealth parts. I think it's kind of a cool thing, just a little additional thing. The box moving puzzles, yeah, those are kind of whatever. But, you know, I don't hate it. I like this game a lot. I genuinely, when I played this for the first time, I was, like, in awe of it. I thought it was like, this is an amazing sequel. Like, this... Now, I don't think it's necessarily as good, and it's difficult to compare these because this one is a 2D adventure game. This is a 3D adventure game. They're made with very different standards, but the production quality is so high on the Sleeping Dragon. I love it. It's a great game, and I think it has to go at least into the solid category. I don't think it's an all-time classic. I do think it has some glaring flaws. Nicole is really good in this. This is probably my favorite game where you get to play as Nicole, because all the other ones were not as good in my opinion. Speaking of which, Broken Sword 2, Smoky Mirror, this was actually the first Broken Sword I owned. And I have reviews of all the Broken Sword games, and I have a Let's Play of this one. Now, I have a lot of fond memories of this one because it was the first Broken Sword game I played. It's very easy. It's almost a little too easy in my opinion. And I think the reason is that because it came out a year after the first game, that's why I say it's a rushed sequel. You can tell that they just tried to make it as close to the second game, the first game as possible. But I'll give Revolution credit because this is the only game that I think has a legitimately original story that works. That they went from like European history into Mesoamerican Aztec mythology for the sequel. I thought that was a really cool idea. I wish they would have kept on this track. I wish that subsequent Broken Sword games, they would have like gone to different parts of the world and used different mythologies. Because that's one of the things that I hate about the Angel of Death. It's like, you know, okay, this time it's the Vatican is the bad guy or something like that. It's like, really, you know, you have the Knights Templar, they're the bad guys of 2 games. Can't you just like do something else with that? And Broken Sword 5 is, I think, equally guilty of that. Broken Sword 2 also has great characters, great music. Production quality is really high. It's a short game. In the past, I think this would have gone in the flawed but good territory, but I have to put it at least in the same category as The Sleeping Dragon. So, don't get me wrong, I think The Sleeping Dragon is objectively a better game, and I think it's a better sequel than 2 because its plot is directly linked to the first games. It is kind of like the part 2 to Shadow of the Templars, really. But Broken Sword 2 is stylistically more similar to the first game, and I actually kind of dig that. I think it's really cool in that. Now we come to the Serpent's Curse. This is the 5th game, and I have heard that Revolution's working on a 6th game. I'll play it. You know, I'll definitely play it when it comes out. But if you saw my review of this game, I have a review video. I have also a review blog of it from years ago when it was actually brand new. I'm a bit mixed on it. Like, parts of it I like. The first half of the game, okay, I'll say that. The first half of the game, I really like. The second half was kind of mediocre. I did not enjoy it. Some of the puzzles are, some of the puzzles are really, really, especially in the second part, are really, really hard, and I did not enjoy that at all. There's a good build-up here for a good mystery, but I don't think it ever really gets off the ground, really well. It's a bit underwhelming. It's not a bad game. I don't think it deserves to go on the bottom half, absolutely not. But I was a little unimpressed by it. So now I'm just trying to figure out, where to put it. Again, Hold My Hand is not really a good descriptor for this game, except there's the tabula puzzle that I could not figure out. And I remember I replayed it, I think a couple of years ago. I replayed it. When I replayed it for the review, I thought okay, I remember I had to cheat on the tabula puzzle the first time. This time I'll actually try to figure it out for myself. And I couldn't. I could not figure out the tabula puzzle the first time around. And not the second time around. And I think the bad guys in this they're bad. They're not as bad as the ones in Angel of Death. The Angel of Death is in a category of its own for video game badness for this series. Okay, you know what? I'll be gentle here and say that it's flawed, but good, because I did enjoy it. It would be a stretch to say that I didn't enjoy it. And listen, I cheated on that one puzzle, but I figured out all the other ones. Because the first half of the game is actually a little too easy. The second half is almost a little too hard. But it wasn't it was that one puzzle that I'm not gonna hold that one puzzle against the whole game. It's just that the story wasn't very good. Bad guys weren't very good. The first half of the game was kind of fun. It's technically a 2D point and clicking game. The characters are 3D models. It doesn't really feel like the first two games though. Except just for the fact that they brought back so many characters. But okay, we're done for the rank for now. We're about halfway through, a little over halfway through, I think. So next time it'll be all the other randos adventure games. So we'll pick it up then. See you on the next one.